Amit Tyagi, Associate Director for Admissions, Soumya, Director PGP YL, Kaushik Rai, Manager, Admissions and Financial Aid. But on today's session, we have two distinguished faculty members who will be discussing about the impact of AI on curriculum. As you all are aware by now that tech, data, and analytics are key part of the curriculum for the new PGP YL. We'll hear it from them, more details about the same. And it's my pleasure today to introduce the faculty members who are part of this session. First up, Professor Anand Nandkumar. He's the Associate Professor for Strategy. He's also the Executive Director at Shritni, Associate Dean for Center for Learning and Teaching Excellence. He explores industry and firm level phenomena that influence innovation, generation of new ideas and entrepreneurship, distribution and commercialization of new ideas. His research focuses on high technology industries such as pharma, biotech, and software, and it falls in between industrial organization, economics of technological change, and strategy. Professor Nandkumar, current work is in the innovation stream, examines the effect of stronger IPR on different aspects of innovation, such as the influence of stronger patents on long-run incentives for innovation, or the influence of stronger patents on the functioning of markets for technology. In the entrepreneurship stream, his current work examines the influence of venture capitalists on entrepreneurial performance. Professor Nand Kumar graduated with a PhD in public policy and management with a focus in strategy and entrepreneurship from Carnegie Mellon University in 2008. Prior to his PhD, he worked for about 3 years with a startup in the Silicon Valley, and prior to that in New York City with one of the world's largest financial services firm. True to his expertise at the ISB, Professor Nandkumar teaches strategic innovation management and strategic challenges for innovation-based startup. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you here interacting with the students today.
My pleasure as well. Thank you.
We also have today with us Professor Vishal Karungulam. Professor Vishal is a clinical assistant professor teaching at the Indian School of Business, where he teaches courses on software product management, digital innovation, artificial intelligence, design thinking, software startups, and disruptive technologies. Professor Vishal is also the academic director for the lab, Learning Through Action in Business, which functions as the Office of Experiential Learning at ISB, with the aim to infuse action-oriented learning methodologies across the ISB curriculum, spanning all the PGP programs. Prior to this, Professor Vishal was the head of product for data analytics and BI products at Google India, leading the self-service and governed BI products Looker, Studio, and Looker, while also overseeing various data analytics products. Prior to Google, Professor Vishal has held various product and software engineering leadership roles at Microsoft. He was a good product manager, leading product management teams, building software for Surface, Xbox, HoloLens, and was the product lead for Azure FarmBeats. He also played a pivotal role in Microsoft supply chain transformation across hardware products and Azure. Before Microsoft, Professor Vishal worked as lead software engineer for various large healthcare and high-tech customers at Tata Consultancy Services Limited. A TEDx speaker, musician, and an avid quizzer, Professor Vishal is passionate about bringing together the worlds of industry and academia. Sir, pleasure to have you on the session as well. And we look forward to insights from the discussions between both of you. And over to you for the discussion.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for having me here and having both of us here. And the goal for today that we have is we just wanted to have a quick conversation about AI and how it's actually infused in the teaching methodologies. And we'll talk about some examples of what we're trying to do, and we'll have a discussion about where we think this is going, just to kind of give a sense to everyone on how we are thinking about infusing AI into higher education, right? So that's really the area. But before we go into specifics itself, I just thought I'll take a couple of minutes. Look, it's a term that is often used. I think all of us use it a lot. It's important for us to kind of ground ourselves a little bit into understanding what this whole thing is. But see, AI as a concept is not new. Let me start with that. I'm sure all of you know it's research in this has been happening for more than 30, 40 years. It's not a new term by any measure. It's just that now your ability to be able to experience it has gotten democratized. And that's why it's become such a buzzword in some sense, right? So if you think of technologies like GPT, they've made AI accessible, but the technology paradigm itself is something that people have been working on for many, many years. And I'm sure a lot of you who are on the call have also experienced the power of AI one way or the other. What we don't realize is when we think of AI, the first thing that comes to our mind is technology like GPT, this whole chatbot technology. But really, AI has been ambient in our lives for many, many years. And we just don't realize it in ways that it manifests. So if any of you has actually unlocked your phone using your Face ID or your fingerprint, you've actually used AI. Like if you're actually checking emails every day and your email is deciding what is spam and what is not, it is using AI. If you do search on any search engine, you're using AI. So we don't realize it, but we have actually been in the AI world for quite some time now. This is not new. It's just that a lot of people equate AI with generative AI, but AI is much larger, right? So we're going to talk about it in that slightly larger kind of picture. But like I was telling you, the main focus that we wanted to have for the last about 15, 20 minutes or so is to have a conversation generally about how AI is being infused into the worlds of learning and teaching. Right. So that's what we want to kind of talk about. And to start us off, maybe Anand, I'll ask you to just help us understand. I know you've been doing a lot of interesting experiments at ISB and trying to infuse AI into both teaching and learning. So maybe you can help us understand about what you've been trying out, how it's been panning out, has it been working out or not? Is it good or bad? Like, tell us a little bit about what you've experienced.
Okay, as you always do, you put me in a spot. So let me try and there were too many questions rolled into one. So let me try and pass out, but I'll start with where Vishal you left off, right? So I think it's you're on the you hit the nail on its head when you said that AI has been around for a long time. To some extent, maybe in the form that we are used to these days, which includes both the idea of learning as well as this idea of democratization in terms of access tools themselves. So I completely agree with that. So sort of classification and a broad thought on where we are with AI. But more importantly, I think for business schools, right? I've been teaching for the last 17 years or so, right? You see this gradual evolution of teaching management education and maybe even more broadly social sciences itself, right? There used to be this, theory lecture based and theory driven teaching, right? So for the most part, it used to be a monologue, and maybe you and I have been through it in our colleges, and we remember, and we've often accused our professors of simply reading from the textbook, right? And then it used to be a yawn, and a lot of us used to be literally caught napping in the classroom, right? In that sense. So then people said, okay, look, social sciences is obviously about social phenomena. Can we do something better, right? So then you had techniques such as case-based teaching, right? So you sort of infuse some amount of learning by doing, by getting students to think about examples about which a lot is written in the case in a lot of detail. There's richness provided to the students. And the idea is to somewhat get away from this idea of lecturing to a role play, which is where students would probably maybe play the role of one or two protagonists in the case and then start thinking about how they would solve a problem. Right. And then, we have these tools about AI, and then they said that, okay, could we do a little bit more in terms of making these examples a little more practical by providing data and providing students with the ability to crunch data, much like a lot of managers would do for a living. Right. So the analytics wave maybe got us very close to it. And I'll come back and talk about it, right? And I don't mean these as technological changes alone. And these are far from it, right? In the sense that it simply influenced how faculty members think about providing a learning experience. And I don't think, so analytics has been around, regressions has been around for a long time, for example. Data, we all used to collect data. I've even as a PhD student crunched, I've run OLS by hand, right? The regressions by hand. So we are used to data, but it simply changed how we start thinking about it, right? Because the minute we know as faculty that companies are making use of data to make strategic decisions, then it also sort of begins to make inroads into the way that we think about how we can imbibe these students in a practical context. So data, we started, some of us started generating synthetic data, or maybe, going online and searching for data sources that would be relevant for these cases, so that it then evolved to maybe a little bit of lecture, a little bit of case teaching, and a little bit of data analysis to support the case analysis. Right, so that's where we were, and then comes in AI, and along with all these access tools, it then at least started some of us off in two directions, right? So if you have an intelligent system that students can actually communicate with, can I create intelligent bots and have learning companions for students to sort of learn in one or two ways? One is the what we typically call as gamification. So the idea is for students to beat the bot. And maybe some of us could have trained the bot with these algorithms such as deep reinforcement learning and the like. And then the goal is that the machine would behave like a human being, and the goal for the human learner is to beat the machine, right? And not that this idea was very new and so on and so forth. It simply made us think along those dimensions. And of course, with Gen AI, there is more of a, it's easier way of deploying it in the classroom, especially at scale, right? So people can, instead of trying to write these bots or create these custom bots, which, the upfront costs are much higher. And maybe because of that, we, as faculty, we don't end up fine-tuning it every year. Now there is this idea of Gen AI, which can do a lot of these things for us, right? It can, for example, act as a bot, and you could maybe end up creating bots on the fly and deploy it. Like, for example, I can think of a problem tonight and then try and deploy it tomorrow instead of, these high level of programming that it would otherwise require. So I think there are two sort of takeaways, right? One is this idea that it simply changed. The current revolution has simply changed the way that faculty members think about delivering maybe the same content. I don't think for the most part the principles have changed, but I think the delivery has undergone quite a bit of change. And I don't think it's because of the advent of technology per se, because a lot of us tend to use it for our research, or were using it for our research. But what this simply meant is that, given that it's accessible, maybe people come in with some amount of knowledge. Maybe we can piggyback ourselves on that knowledge and offer a very different learning experience, right? So over time, I think, we've done cases. From cases, we've done to more data-driven analysis of these cases. Now we are not only talking about, how can we essentially gamify some of these principles? In other words, can we essentially stimulate this idea or take this idea of learning by trying very seriously? So I think it is completely moved. The advent of AI has completely moved the pendulum towards, some of us trying techniques or pedagogies in which students learn by trying. And the neat thing about it is, as the psychologists would argue, this is knowledge that ends up sticking, right? Because, all of us probably don't remember our good days, but I certainly, maybe it's me, but I certainly remember my bad days, right? The terrible days. I remember my walks of shame very well. So a learning experience can be these limited walks of shame, in the sense that, the failure is not made public, but it simply gives you an opportunity to learn. And this builds better muscle memory, right? Brain memory. Whereas if in the earlier days, when it simply used to be this lecture-driven type of teaching, it used to be in and out, right? I mean, you would apply to the classroom, maybe in the exam, and even these exams used to be a bunch of heuristics, right? You need to, like math problem solving. You would look at a problem and say, oh, I know this form, and this is how I should proceed. Whereas right now, the immersive way of teaching, which is learning by trying, I think makes a lot of sense, because people not only know the theory or the theory behind what they are applying, but they are also encouraged to think about boundary conditions. Under what conditions would this theory work? And on top of all of this, it builds this memory, right? Because people have failed and then they are trying to recover. So this failure it can be something that people remember for their lives, and they know what not to do rather than what they are just doing itself. So I think these tools have enhanced teaching, and not because of the technical features of it. It's essentially because what professors like Vishal or I can do with them. And it's provided us lots of opportunities to make learning more immersive, interactive, so much so that students can learn from trying. Right. So that for me is what excites me as well, and it keeps me, well, I shouldn't say awake, but it keeps me energized on a daily basis about the immense possibilities of what I can accomplish in the classroom.
No, absolutely. I think you said it really well when you actually said that the learning science itself has not really changed. It's just that the way we are administering the science has changed, right? So we've created these avenues, and learning by doing has always been the most powerful way to learn. So obviously, this is making it more accessible, which is interesting. Which brings me to the the other question that I wanted to discuss with you, and something that I've tried, and I wanted to get your opinion. I know we've not spoken about this. Is one of the things I've been trying is, there's this raging debate in the academic community, I'm sure saying, is it really good to allow AI in classroom? Like, should I really be allowing AI in classrooms for students to use, especially in B school? So, for example, we do a lot of case studies, and a lot of students might end up using technology like ChatGPT to solve that case study. Is it really okay for them to do it? So, this is like a big debate that's been happening, and so I know we've discussed this, and we've tried this also. We've kind of flipped the whole approach, and instead of saying that I'm going to give you a case and we're going to solve the case, we've said, here is the case, here is the solution as solved by AI. Now you critique the solution. You come back and tell me, is this a good solution or a bad solution? If it's a bad solution, why is it a bad solution? If it's a good solution, why is it a good solution? How do you improve the solution? So we're trying these new models of pedagogy. And in all honesty, when I tried it for the first time, it was surprise for the students more than anything else, because they were not, expecting something like this. But what I observed is, by doing mechanisms like this, we did exactly what you discussed in the beginning, which is we are getting them to think in ways that they wouldn't have thought, like this boundary conditions example that you were giving, right? So now they're looking at the most simplest possibility, or the most generic possibility, if you will, as a solution. And by definition, they're looking at when will this break, or when will this not break, or what works and what doesn't work, or how can I enhance my thinking on top of what has already become the baseline in some sense. The funny part is, I think of ChatGPT or any of GPT's answers as baseline today. If somebody actually comes and says that, oh, I have created an answer, the question I'll ask is, great. If it's as good as ChatGPT, then, it's not differentiated. So in some sense, it's become the baseline, and you need to work with that baseline, either disproving it or proving it or making it better. So have you run experiments like this? I know you've tried something like this. Like, how has that worked out, and what happened?
Just got off teaching a class in which I ran. So it was actually inspired by you, Vishal. I ran the exact same experiment. There were some minor differences, but it works perfectly well for something like strategy.
Yeah.
And maybe I can come back and tie it to people's personal competitive advantage as well. So it works great with strategy, right? Because most machine learning algorithms or AI algorithms works on the principle of ensembling, which is essentially averaging across different
Correct.
populations, right?
Correct.
What you would end up getting is maybe an average of what people do or think how they think about a particular problem statement. And that for me is not critical thinking. And if I plug it back into this idea of strategy, the goal of any company's strategy is to outperform its rivals. So how do you be very similar to your rival and yet outperform them is, that doesn't make logical sense typically. Right? There might be specific circumstances in which it is possible, but typically it does not make any sense. So it actually works very well, right? Because what ChatGPT and and LLM models, pick your favorite one, Llama or whatever else it is, it essentially ensembles over a large set of corpuses, right? And I think that, that is not the point of strategy. But so, it's very similar to the baseline idea that you're talking about. But if you were formulating a strategy, and what you recommend is that baseline, the odds are that you're going to do just as well as your competitor or your rival. But the point is to do better than them. So, and that's the reason why you would even be hired as a consultant or somebody who formulates strategy for your firm. So it works very well. But more sort of philosophically, I think this gets us very close to imbibing critical thinking with students, right? I mean, in the sense that, the idea of trying to critique it, right, like the way you described that you do with your students, gets them to criticize or even support a given set of actions and think about, okay, look, what first principles does it fit into? And why does this make any sense? Right? And then once you know why it makes sense, you could probably say that, okay, look, I can actually do better. And even if you were to go back to this idea of AI and so on and so forth, right? So there is always this danger that any algorithm can misinterpret or a piece of information when the distributional properties of the training sample is very different from the test sample. Correct? So what this exercise more philosophically is trying to do is to get you to apply to a completely new distribution.
Correct.
This is likely to be error prone. And it is interesting that students also not only learn the critical thinking, but they might in the process also discover the statistical properties of under what conditions machine learning is likely to work. Or under what conditions can I use it for some kind of strategic thinking?
Yes.
So this is in some ways the other realization that students came up with. They started talking about distributions. What is it trained on? What is it ensembling?
Correct.
Why am I getting these wrong answers when you told me that it's actually the wrong answer?
Right.
I was led to believing that that was actually the right answer. So critical thinking is a big takeaway of this exercise. As much as understanding the statistical properties of the data that they are essentially accessing through whatever their favorite platform is, both of which are, I think, incredibly useful insights for them when they get into their respective jobs.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially if you think about it, I'm tying it back to what you had said that when we were studying, a lot of this was lecture driven. And so the faculty couldn't actually, I think, even have the opportunity to create that environment where we could practice critical thinking in the classroom. I mean, students had to do it in their own way, maybe outside classroom with their friends in some discussion. But now if the pedagogy itself has evolved to an area where we can help them develop this kind of skills, it's very fascinating. So these are just some ways in which that we are using AI.
Even if from a very different perspective, even if you look at our mythologies and the Greek mythology, the idea of debating was looked at as a very important component of learning.
Right. Socratean way, right? So
the Socrates way of thinking. And I think it gets you very close to that, right? So what you're essentially doing is to have an argument with, you probably don't want to have an argument with your spouse, but this gives you an opportunity to argue with a machine at the least, which might behave like a companion that knows everything about everything, or at least claims to do that, right? So it promotes this way of Socrative method of learning, which I think is very useful because as managers, you may not have all the answers, but you should at least know what are the right questions to ask of someone. And I think it gets you pretty close to that.
No, I completely agree. It's very fascinating. So I know we are kind of getting to the end. I'll just try to wrap with one question or comment, and maybe both of us can weigh in on this. Is where do you think this is going, though? Like, for example, with all these not inventions, new pedagogical ways that we are trying out and students learning in different ways, how do you think learning and teaching is going to evolve? Like, what do you see happening in the MBA area, for example, with ISB? Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, if you had to look in the mirror and make a prediction.
I mean, a lot, maybe just my opinion at this point. So that caveat would be useful to remember.
Yeah.
I think we might be moving to a point in which AI will be a staple tool, right? And there would be people will have different kinds of companion, giving them advice on all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But what I think we might see, and this is my hope, is that I think we will have better thinkers who can, essentially who have a better ability of putting things in perspective, like never before, if these tools are developed and deployed very well. I think this idea of trying to compete with machines, at least in the MBA world, may not be a bad idea. I think. But there are issues, right? I hope this is done responsibly.
Yeah.
Like with most things, I hope the right set of data is actually used, by schools. And as schools, we also need to make sure of coming up with mechanisms to ensure that, whatever we are recommending is actually valid. There is a little bit of gray right there, which you and I deal with on a daily basis. Right. So there is, however, a word of caution that faculty like you or I should exercise before, we deploy it in even larger scale. So but it does offer exciting possibilities, right? This ability, it is certainly, you have this ability to easily create role plays, synthetic data, a whole bunch of things, which enhances learning experience. So if responsibly deployed, I think it has huge potential, right? I mean, for example, people are talking about learning through pictures and so on and so forth. So I think it has. So a lot of what the psychologists, the learning psychologists used to say, used to be very hard to implement in the classroom.
Correct.
And right now, maybe we are at a point at which a lot of what they say can actually be implemented in the classroom and refined, in a very short notice.
No, absolutely. In fact, I was just reading up something where they were talking about how, learning through pictures, as you were mentioning, there's actually a course where I think at HBS, they're trying to completely teach the notion of biases using images that are generated only through these models, right? So they're teaching an entire class on how do you think about bias just by generating multiple images through a full class. So it's very interesting. I mean, a lot of things happening. I'm very excited. I think there is, more to do, of course, in this area, but I am very excited about the possibilities, and I know you are very excited as well. But yeah, I'm hoping that as students come into the class, they will be as excited or more excited than we are to try out these things.
And here is the more exciting part. The next time we have this conversation, we might end up talking about completely different.
Completely different.
That's not because of us, it's because the technology is also changing so fast.
Absolutely. And I think it's the best place to be. I mean, I've always believed that if it's something that is moving really, really fast, it keeps you on your toes and you get to learn new stuff and you get to challenge yourself and do something new. So it's very exciting. Like I always, get to hear from people saying, now is the best time to make the future. It's just that you don't know if the future is going to last. So it's a fun place to be in. Yeah. No, thank you so much, Anand, for
Thank
the
you.
invites. I really had fun chatting up. And then I'll hand it back to the team. Are you here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, back to you, Anand. Back to you.
Thanks. So we will take a few questions for you, sir. I'm sure students want to ask or prospects want to ask a few questions on the discussion. So prospects, you can raise your hands now, and I'll request you all to ask questions to the faculty members later discussion or about the curriculum aspects. Admission questions, we'll take it later after we are done with the first session. So we have three hands raised. Sargam, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good evening, sir. So, this is a bit of an off track question, but with how AI is advancing further and the level of competitiveness is obviously going to rise, and then given how a lot of things will be done for us through AI, it might also affect our cognitive abilities generally as human beings, right? So, for people my age who are very close to entering the workforce, what skills, like apart from our education or academic background, would like help us to survive the heightened level of competitiveness?
I mean, so I'll just tell you one thing and I'll hand it over to Anand. The one thing that I have, always believed in, especially whenever change is happening so fast, and like it's happening now, I'd say change is happening really, really fast.
Yeah.
I think the most important skill for people is developing the ability to learn. Like learning how to learn, I think is going to be the most important skill. If,
Yes, yes,
if, you, if you figure out how to constantly unlearn and relearn new things, I think that's the only way to thrive going forward, especially with the pace of change. I mean, you would have seen these numbers, right? So Facebook took what, 4 years to hit 100 million users, and ChatGPT took 8 weeks to hit 100 million users. I mean, look at the pace. It's just unimaginable speed at which these things are changing. And to put things in perspective, I just want to say this. I mean, it doesn't register very easily. But exactly about 2 years and 1 month ago is the first time that general population heard the word ChatGPT.
right.
2 years ago. And the only thing we hear now is ChatGPT or generative AI. Like you can imagine the pervasiveness of the technology. So, in a world that's changing so fast, I think the number one skill that everyone needs to focus on is learning how to learn. I don't know, Anand, if you agree, disagree, if there is more.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And this is also related to another question on the the chat window, which is from Asta Jha. And I think Asta says that, okay, look, what about creativity? Is it dimming down the inherent creativity of human beings? Not if so. Here is the answer. Maybe it answers both these questions, because I think the part of the excitement here is to be able to question, Chat GPT itself. And the minute you start to question Chat GPT, so if people, so in the previous world, professors probably used to be, their words used to be gospel, and everybody used to go with whatever the professor said. And if somebody is going to treat ChatGPT as if it's spitting out gospel every minute, then you do walk right into the trap of this dimmed creativity or muted creativity. But on the contrary, if you walk into ChatGPT saying that, okay, look, I think ChatGPT need not be correct, and I'm essentially going to question every answer that it gives me, I think it should, on the contrary, enhance your creativity, right? Because you do have a tool that is incredibly powerful, and it can, act like an average human being, right? An average smart human being. But remember, our goal is not to be average, right? So your personal competitive advantage, hopefully, is not to be, one among the flock of people. It is probably to stand out. And that, in that sense, if you start to critically question some of these tools or the output of these tools, then you have a better shot at acquiring personal competitive advantage, right? That's in essence what
Yeah,
I'm trying to say.
right. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Targam. Thank you.
So there is a question about research articles. Amrit, Anand, what about the take on how it is influencing research articles? So I don't think, it's interesting that one or two bad stories catch our attention, right? I suspect that's the world that we live in right now. But a lot of these mundane tasks like data cleaning can actually be done much better. Things like complicated matching of strings can now be done more accurately, right? So in other words, I again, it depends on what the end use is. People can obviously go to ChatGPT and say, "Oh, write me a paper that looks like a human paper," right? And so it's not the fault of the tool if people are using it for the wrong purpose, I think. So
Correct.
we know that from social media as well. I suppose the same caveat applies to this too.
Absolutely. Bhavesh, I think.
Bhavesh,
Bhavesh?
please ask a question.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, talking about research, a PhD student at my college, he was sharing with me candidly that in one of the conferences, he tried to submit abstracts which were written by AI. So, he made like 5 categories. One was very bad, and 5 was very good, trying to see if he can emulate a very good research paper which might not arise suspicion in first runs. And it felt like all the 5 got accepted. So I want to understand, like, how as a student who is really interested in research can I utilize AI in the best possible manner without having the connotation that, oh, I'm cheating, I should not be doing this.
Anand's probably better suited to give that answer.
So it comes down to responsible use, right? I mean, in the sense that, look, the ultimate test of research is the quality of ideas. It's not about your ability to solve hard math problems or run regressions or, for that matter, even accumulate large data sets. It's ultimately what stands the test of time is the insight. My strong belief is that if you take the top maybe 25th, 25 percentile of these papers, that is 75th percentile and above, these ideas would be extremely hard for ChatGPT or any such tool to replicate. So I don't know what research conferences you're talking about. Research conferences and the validity of these research conferences and the thresholds associated with them vary from discipline to discipline. So if you were in my neck of the woods, a conference acceptance does not mean much, whereas a publication means a lot, right? So the crucial test would be, would it make the test of going through a review process? You have several rounds of review process, like 5 or 6 rounds. So my recent paper went through 10 rounds of review. It's not clear whether ChatGPT can help you handle all the 10 rounds of review because the humans are asking you very different questions. It's very, conferences are different from a research publication because the answer in a conference is whether it's accepted or not. The answer with research publications, we will accept it provided you make these changes, and that cycle can go on for 8 or 10 times. It's not clear whether ChatGPT can actually handle that. So, which is why in management you probably see fewer of those kinds of issues relative to maybe engineering sciences, wherein conference acceptance is essentially a dichotomous outcome, whether it's accepted or not. So I leave it right there. So I'm happy to take this offline, right? Because for a lot of them, this may not be relevant.
True.
Makes sense, sir. Thank
Varun, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So good evening, sir. So my question is basically I'll have a small introduction of myself. I have about 2 years of experience in ITC, mainly in manufacturing sector. So I was given the projects mainly regarding refining data, gaining new insights from data. And from my experience, I saw that manufacturing has a lot of scattered data, which before you feed it to AI, you have to do refining yourself. And then feed it. So with that way, I gained a lot of exposure. But then as a that process and automating them. So with that, where
But
does
we might
there
have
is
lost you.
technology?
We might have lost you after your
Uh,
installation of data cleaning. So what happens after?
so yeah. So right now, what we see in manufacturing is many companies are investing huge amounts of money to integrate all these new technologies into their process to automate their process, which is happening right now. My question is, where does this lead in the future, and how we, after once we graduate, how can we prepare for that matured level of technology where it is already integrated into the process and where we go ahead from that integration. So what would be your vision if that happens and where that goes?
See, you kind of answered your question, when you said that a lot of your time was spent in cleaning up the data, making the data ready, which is true, by the way. So if you need to do any kind of work to derive a meaningful insight, you have to first be able to acquire the data, you have to clean the data, you have to make it meaningful, you have to process it a certain way, and then you can derive your insight. If you think about it, a typical process, in a typical data insight extraction process, but 70 to 80% of your time is really going to go in data engineering. But if the idea is, if a lot of this data engineering can be automated for you, and if algorithms can actually clean up your data meaningfully, and there are systems which are deeply integrated into your data sources, which are able to get the data and do this work for you, then imagine how much time you now have to find the insights. Imagine the kind of insights that you will be able to find because you now have a lot more at your disposal than what you do, right? So I'll give you an example of non-data analysis. I'll give you a slightly more generic example where it's happening right now in the world today. So if you take, in technology world, product management is a very popular function. And in product management, if you see a lot of time for the product manager actually goes is in talking to the customers, getting a lot of data, but articulating this in the form of a product spec, giving it to an engineering team so that they can go build it as a software. And then the engineering team actually delivers this piece of software. One of the challenges for product manager is they always have to come with what is the right thing that needs to get built by the software engineer. Otherwise, the software engineer will not build it because they want to make sure that they're building the thing that has the maximum amount of value. But you see, as a product manager, most of the times you don't know what is going to work. So the approach you ideally want to take is to be able to experiment with 100 different things before you go to the engineer to say, this is what you need to build and this is what will work. And today you have no time to do that. But because of this deep integration of these technologies and technologies like generative AI or AI in general, the product managers in software are today able to create hundreds of prototypes, 20 prototypes, 30 prototypes without involving engineering so that they can go test all of these prototypes, gain a lot of confidence and run the experiments and get the data to decide which of these prototypes has to actually be built so that engineering is building the most valuable output, right? So if you think of what it just did is instead of having 10 product managers, you can have one product manager who's actually running these 10 experiments and then deciding with reasonable amount of confidence on what can actually work. So I think it's fundamentally changed the nature of how these people work, right? Which means that productivity has insanely gone up. And more importantly, they now have the mental bandwidth to start spending more time with customers, gather more qualitative inputs, and then try more experiments. So I think this is going to happen with almost every industry. That is the value, right? So again, coming back to what Anand was mentioning in the beginning. So if you know how to leverage these technologies meaningfully, and if you ask the right kind of questions, your insight generation process itself can become exponentially better. I think that's what these technologies are going to do. So I really look at this as a win-win. I think this is a great thing for it to happen.
I just wanted to take one question, which is also useful from clarity perspective, right? So Ayushi Agarwal, the chat says that I understand that AI is an enabler, not an all-to-do replacement genie. What skills and courses a non-engineer should do with immense interest in AI? So the clarification I thought I would provide from my side is to clarify that we are a management school and not a technology school. If there is immense interest in AI from a technical perspective, then which is, I suspect, not what you meant, but you should be looking at an engineering school. There are no two things about that. But what I think people like Vishal can help you with is to manage, how your organizations can actually make sense of AI or any technology for that matter, right? Any ICT-based technology for that matter. And what people like me can help you with is probably thinking hard about how do you manage change in organizations, right? Because this is a technological change. So at the end of the day, it is going to, so beyond a point, the adoption of technology is not just a technical problem. It is also a managerial problem. I think your experience here and maybe the set of electives and the courses that you take would help you quite a bit towards the latter. And right now, at the rate at which AI is going, AI is a strategic problem, which is the CEO level problem. And I guess, given your long-term career in perspective, that's probably what you would gain from this program.
Absolutely. Great. No, thank you so much for being an engaging audience and asking so many questions. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sirs, for your insights. It was great having you today in the session. So, our audience will now take the admissions-related questions. You can raise your hands, and we'll be glad to answer your admission-related questions as well. Thank you, sirs, for your time.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sargam, you can ask your question. Kaushik, if you would like to moderate.
Yes, sir. So I had reached out to the admissions team via the email, and I just wanted to confirm that if I apply for the first round, am I still eligible to apply for second round if I don't get through?
No, you're not. So
Okay.
you can only apply in one round in an admission cycle or in a year. So choose wisely which round you want to apply. There's no difference in terms of selection criteria or scholarships in either of the rounds. It's just the convenience for you when you're ready for the application. So if you feel you're ready, you can apply in round one. If not, you can also push your application to round two.
Okay, so the number of seats that are being filled up in round one, is that more or is it divided individually with the two
It's
rounds?
based on a cutoff. So as long as you meet the cutoff, whether in round one or round two, we will ensure that you get an offer, and the cutoff will remain same, or it will only come down. It will not go up across the two rounds, and that's how we'll manage the seats across the two rounds. So there's no fixed quota for seats as such.
Okay, and just one last round. So I might be taking a gap year. I'm still skeptical about that, but if I do that, is deferred admission still possible? So like I can secure my seat and then continue to take a gap?
You can ask for a deferral after you get an offer, based on what reasons and so on and so forth, and the committee will go through it and take a call on it. But even if you get a deferral, you should be eligible to apply to join the year in which you in the year in which you intend to join. For example, your work ex cannot be more than 2 years, even in that particular year.
Okay. Okay, sure. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Sashwat, go ahead, please. Please unmute yourself. Sashwat, yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Basically, what I wanted to understand is I'm someone, so I started working in 2023 June, right? When I'll be joining the ISB program, I'll almost have close to 2 years of work experience, right? So what I wanted to understand from you is how I need to consider this with respect to, say, applying for the flagship 1 year program that ISB has next year, because I'll be graduating at the same time, right? What I wanted to understand from you is what are the things you think I need to consider before deciding on which one to go for or which one to apply
Right.
for.
Right. So PGP YL is essentially for people who want to fast track their careers and want to do an MBA right after the graduation or with a few years less years of work experience. So it's more for accelerating your careers per se. PGP is more for career pivots. In PGP, you'll come with a certain years of work experience where you will have certain skill sets, and using those skill sets, you want to pivot your careers to other industries or functions or areas. So PGP, while you have a lot of opportunities to get into industries of your choice right off the beat, PGP, you will be coming in with an understanding of your current skill sets and how transferable they are to different industries. Again, another difference is PGP is a 1 year program because people come with work experience. So it's more rigorous and compressed. We want to ensure that are not away from the industry for more than a year, and when you go back, you are still fresh in terms of the awareness of industry and so on and so forth. PGP, while is a 2 year program, because people will be coming in with less years of work experience, less exposure. So there'll be elements of hands-on learning experience greater in the curriculum. First year, you'll have a lot of exposure to hands-on learning. There'll be an internship component to expose you to a work environment before you start your second year. So those are the key things you should keep in mind. But having said that, if you're close to 2 years, I would suggest go for PGP. If you're just 1 or 2 days here and there, then always aim for the higher program.
Got it. Thank you, sir. That was very helpful. Just one more question I have on that. How different would the companies who are coming for placement be? Mainly, more than companies, I'm looking at roles.
Yeah.
So would it be like one tier lower role for the YL when compared to the flagship PGP? Because obviously people there have more years of experience.
Yeah. So placements will be same at the same time for both PGP and PGYL. All the companies will be coming to hire at that point of time will look at both PGP and PGPYL candidates. Now, even now in PGP, your work plays a role in terms of what kind of roles you get. Somebody who has 6-7 years of work experience can expect mid-level roles in an organization. Somebody who has 2 to 3 years of work experience, because 0 to 3 is almost considered as freshers, do also take up leadership roles, man, empty roles, and so on and so forth. So people who will be part of PGP YL, they can look at more of roles in the areas of investment banking, in the areas of marketing, in the areas of consulting, maybe lesser than what somebody with 5-6 years of work experience will be having, will be getting those roles. So that distinction is always going to be there, in terms of the roles and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that your salaries will be lesser. There could be more depending on which industries or which companies or which organizations you choose to work with.
Got it. Got it. Thank you, sir. Then I think that ties back to the answer you gave to the first question, where if you say do an MBA quicker, right, you have more options to pivot because you have
Exactly.
lesser experience. While if you take the longer route, you'll have to take something. You'll have to go for a domain where you'll be able to leverage whatever experience you already have. Makes sense.
Exactly. So especially for PGP, while there are a lot of openings in the areas of marketing trainee roles, for example, HLLs, PNGs, they look at people who are younger and who can be groomed in the
Mm-hmm.
organizations. The investment banks, they look at people who can be groomed in the organizations. While for PGP, the roles will be more in line with what skill sets you bring to the table, and accordingly, they may get more of a lateral level roles as well.
Got it. Sorry, sir. Just one last question. So, if I'm someone who's interested in general management roles, where would that fall in? Would they be more preferable for YL candidates or the 1 year?
There is always going to be a slight overlap for a few years, because
Mhm.
currently in the PGP, we have seen that the general management roles, people with 0 to 4 years are preferred. So there'll be some
Okay.
overlap between both the programs. So 0 to 2
Got it.
definitely you'll be at an advantage, but people with 2 years plus also, there'll be few people who will be getting through those roles from the PGP as well.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. I hope I didn't take too much time. Thank you.
Bhavesh,
Pavesh, go ahead, please. Pavesh Shah.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
yeah, you are.
I'm really sorry if this question is a bit redundant or premature to answer. I'm having a little bit of financial decision fatigue. I
Hmm.
will CAT, I think I might get 98 percentile. And when I look at
Mhm.
GMAT's score of what is an average median score, in one of the webinars, it was told to 645 plus. And that is
Hmm.
a 90 percentile as per MBA.com. So I'm
Hmm.
at a conundrum. Should I write GMAT and get a 90 to 95 percentile? Well, when my CAT might be 98 percentile, or ISB is not going to consider the percentile equivalent like this, and I should just
No, no.
give it my
We will
best.
not consider percentile equivalent, because both the tests are different, right? So we're
Mm.
not going to look at like for like percentile comparisons. No, each test we will look at uniquely in its own self, and look at relative to the overall where how you have performed the test. So percentile equivalence will not be the case. Otherwise, as somebody mentioned in the Q&A, I think it was you or somebody else, that why waste extra money and write and get a
Yes,
score in
sir.
650. Yeah, it's not going to be that way. Don't worry about that. So it's not that 98 percentile will be equivalent to 98 percentile in GMAT. No, that's not the case. Definitely not the
Thank,
case.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Aryan, hi Aryan.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, sir. So my question was actually I have two questions. My first question was regarding the degree itself. I mean the course itself. I wanted to know what is it that we're gonna get at the end of like the program itself. Like, what are we achieving?
So you are getting a postgraduate program certificate, you'll be getting it. But this certificate is an MBA equivalent certificate. In the Indian context, it's not an MBA degree, but it's a certificate like what other B schools also offer, the PGPs, the PGDMs, the DCMs, and all of the world. But
Right.
it is, accredited to AACSB, Equus, and EMBA. It will be ranked by the FT global rankings when the rankings come up for these programs. So it will be equivalent to an MBA degree at the end of the certificate. And for that matter, you will be also able to pursue any opportunities, higher studies or work related anywhere in the country, anywhere globally, because of our triple crown accreditations that we have.
Right, right. Thank you, sir. My second question was regarding the electives that have been mentioned in the program itself. So I couldn't actually see the
Yeah.
elective,
So,
what they
so
are.
those, yeah. So 1 year electives are there, but the for 2 year program, the entire curriculum will be updated on a website in due course. So by the end of this next month or early next year, that is in January, you'll have the complete curriculum updated on the website, including the electives on offer on the website of the program.
Right. Just a small follow-up question. So will that like in a traditional business course, sometimes the electives count as a specialization. Is that the case with this course as well?
So usually what happens is in a traditional business course, if you take 6 electives in one area, you
Yeah.
specialize in that area. So in the PG program, we have 10 specialization on offer. And it depends upon what electives you take. But now world over in most B schools, including the Indian context, the specializations are not mentioned in your degree or certificate. They are what you have done and you mention in your resume for the purpose of job interviews, right? So here
Right.
also you have career tracks. You will not have specialization as such, but those career tracks will be decided based on the electives that you choose. For example, if you want to go to investment banking, there'll be a career track around a set of courses which you might want to take as electives. There's no compulsion for you, but if you want to crack those interviews, those are the kind of courses you might want to take. Like for example, options, futures, and derivatives for investment bankers, asset sales and instrument management for people who want to go into the FMCGs and so on and so forth. So that tracks will be well defined for you, but specializations we won't be as such mentioning them on your certificates.
I understand it. So I mean, if I get this right, I can probably also go for something very similar in the internship criteria so as to match my interests. The
Yeah.
mandatory internship that has been mentioned.
So mandatory internship again will be through the placement team. So companies will be coming and interviewing you basis your resumes and so on and so forth. And even if you don't want to match with your internship, that's okay. As long as you know which direction you want to take in the final placements, so you could take courses according to your choices. There's no compulsion for you to take a particular set of courses if you've taken one track. You can take, I believe there are 18 electives in the second year, and you can take any combination that you choose to.
Sir, is strategy one of the electives?
Many. The strategy is just a larger overarching term. Within strategy, there will be a lot of courses,
Right, right. Thank you so much, sir.
and it has to be because ISB, as you all might be aware of, is known as a consulting campus. Almost all top consulting companies come to the campus, and that's something all the people who are aspiring for consulting would want to do a few courses in that particular area.
Yeah, understand. Thank you, sir.
Veer,
Hi, am I audible?
yeah.
Yeah, so my first question was that after I graduated in 2023, I worked in a startup for a few months, and then I got the opportunity to join a social impact consulting firm called Satwa, and I worked there as a full-time intern. And
Hmm.
I have been doing that over 6 months now, little
Hmm.
over 6 months.
Hmm.
So will that be considered as full-time work experience
So were
or?
you paid for the
Yes,
internship also?
I have the
It
pay
is
slips.
full-time work experience.
It is full-time work.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But at one time, only one full activity is full-time.
Yeah, yeah. Got it. So it was after my college.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, that was one thing. And another thing was for the merit-based scholarships, what will be the criteria? Will it be the test percentile or will it be the overall score?
Overall score, including your CADs, your percentiles, your essays, your interviews, and so on and so forth.
Okay,
Interview
so
activities, everything. Overall score.
and I read somewhere that it is expected that about 40 to 50% of the batch would be getting a scholarship of
Correct,
some kind.
correct, correct.
Okay, all right. And the la one last question was, is there any kind of resource or guidelines that I can follow to better structure my essays, application essays that you could guide me to?
Right. So we had a essay workshop yesterday for the PGP students. I'm sure that is also very relevant for all the PGP YL students. So we will, share that recording maybe with the participants of this particular session in a day or two. And maybe we also have application development workshops coming up in the closer or deadline. So in that also we'll cover the essay topics, how to go about that.
Okay, great. That would be very helpful. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Also, sir, that recording will be there on the YouTube channel also.
YouTube channel also of
Yeah.
ISB admissions.
Yeah. Subin, go ahead, please.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
So I have two questions regarding the applications. First one is in the end, towards the end, you ask for a proof of income for self. So what exactly is required in that? Is it the ITR or pay? I think it's
Pay slips. Pay slips or ITR is fine.
so by what exactly do you mean by pay slips?
Your company might be giving you a pay slip, right? If you're working in an organization, they'll give you monthly pay slips. So last 3 months pay slip is what would be expected.
Is that the salary being shown and credited in the account statement? Is that the pay slip?
Account statement is different, but your organization would send you a separate slip on email. Just
I
check with
think
your HR; they will be able
that
to
is
guide you.
not the norm for my
Yeah.
organization.
Okay, then bank statement is fine. Bank statement is also okay in that case.
So the bank statements has a lot of transactions. So we clip out a particular.
Clip out the particulars. Maybe whatever is your other transaction, you can just mark them as hide them and clip out those transactions and show.
Okay, and the second question is regarding the essay, one of the essays. Wanted some clarity on that. There's a essay in which the topic is that we have to describe a specific personal situation in which we assume a leadership role without formal authority. So, will a situation which happened in a workspace at an internship would count?
Anything would count.
Oh, okay. So, what exactly is meant by formal authority here?
Formal authority is, for example, if you were part of a committee on the college and the principal or whoever the teacher in charge is made you the head of that committee. That's a formal authority, right?
Okay, but
But
taking initiative on
yeah,
yourself by
yeah.
yourself.
But if you took it on yourself, you were part of the committee, but you guided the people to a particular outcome without actually having a title designation.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right.
Ask-
Astha, go ahead, please.
Hi, am I audible?
You are.
Great. I had two questions. The first one being, is there any major minor concept that you guys will be introducing for this particular program?
So there's no major minor, there'll be career paths or career tracks, as I mentioned earlier. So if you take a particular set of electives, you'll be eligible for certain careers. So it's up to you to take what electives you want.
Right,
in the
but there
city.
must be like a set number of electives that you can take, right?
You can take
Because
18 electives out of 80 or 90 odd electives which will be on offer. And if you take six, usually if you take six in any particular in the school, that counts as a major. Three is a minor. But from those 18, you can choose around many of the electives. We don't, ensure that you have a fixed track. We don't want make it compulsive to have for you to have six in one area. So you will have flexibility to decide your own electives. That's the whole point.
right. Okay, that makes sense. My second question was, so I recently graduated and my eighth semester was my internship semester. So technically, I was still a student, but I was living in Bangalore and doing my full-time internship over there. Does that mean I will still have to put
That is
that
not work
internship as
experience. That is not work experience. You can show as part-time internship, or
that
you
be
can show as
part?
internship or part-time, but that will not be full-time work experience.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you so much.
Varun,
Yeah, good evening.
good evening.
So, for the YLP program, what are highlights that the institute is looking for in the resume of the candidate? Haves, good to haves that you recommend we incorporate in our
So we
profiles
look at
while
one of
applying.
the few things that like achievement orientation. You should have achieved something either in academics or in other areas of your life, could be co-curricular, extracurricular. We're looking at people who showcase initiative and leadership skills. So one of the essays talks about it. Leadership skills is not a position, but what kind of initiatives and other activities you've done. We are looking at people who are innovative and entrepreneurial. If you have done any, if you have been, innovative in your professional life or personal life, if you have patents, maybe research, all those things, any one of those things could be, showcased as a quality. And that's what we're looking at in a potential PGYL candidate.
And for the second question, what
I'm
are
sorry, your
some of the
voice is
must-haves or
breaking.
good-to-haves that you suggest we can incorporate? Sorry, sir. So my second question was, what are some of the must-haves or good-to-haves that you can suggest incorporate in our profile?
See, the selection criteria at ISB for even our other programs has always been a holistic criteria. So we do not shortlist you basis individual parameters or criteria. We shortlist you basis a holistic profile, and this includes your ACADS, your test score, your essays, your extracurriculars, and your recommendations from your seniors, that are faculty members in your case, or your seniors at your organization. All these 5 or 6 factors will be converted into a profile score. What this does is, and the shortlisting happens on the profile score. So what this does is, it can balance your profile accordingly. Even if your ACADS are on the lower side, but if your test scores are high, you still get through. If test scores are lower, but your ACADS and everything else is in place, you still get through. So showcase clarity, showcase maturity in your essays. That's my advice to all the candidates. There are no must-haves that this is must. No, because we look at, give you a chance to showcase aspects of your life. For
Right.
example, test score is not must. 99 percentile is not a must. ACADS is not a must. But if this not, then something else. That's what we're looking at. I hope that answers your question, Ravin.
Right.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Sahil, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it does, sir. Thank you.
Sahil Vyas.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good
Sir, I
evening.
had a question regarding the application process. Is there any source or any video on your YouTube channel which we can go through for your application, complete application process? How do we apply and all?
Yeah. So best thing is to look at the application portal. Kaushik will share in the chat window the application portal. Click on that link. All the instructions is easy to follow portal. Application guide will have a session next week on how to make the best fill the best application. But it's a very intuitive application portal where you can go through all the instructions are clearly given, and you can go and apply. So Kaushik, if you could just share the portal link in the chat window. Sahil, you can go through that particular link and look at our application. There is no complexity in that portal for us to create a video for you to apply, but it's a simple portal.
And sir, follow-up question on that. Like, if I'm willing to apply in the round 2, should I start my application now or should I directly?
You can start anytime you want before the round 2 deadline.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Deepti, go ahead, please.
Good evening, sir. I'm actually a student from the medical background, and I have no technical knowledge as to any of the subjects relating to MBA. So I want to know if there is a bridge course for students like me to, relate to the other students when the actual curriculum starts.
Sure. So you'll be given pre-reads to read and come much before the classes start. So you'll have pre-reads to prepare for and come to the classroom. Not just you, everybody will have pre-reads. And believe me, it's a MBA program and there are diverse subjects in place. Not just you, everybody will have certain courses they have no knowledge of. For example, engineers will have no knowledge of accounting or finance. They will now have no knowledge of economics. They will have no knowledge of statistics and so on and so forth. While finance people will have no knowledge of marketing or no knowledge of this thing. So as coming as a doctor, you will have certain advantages in certain courses like maybe organizational theory, where they teach something about food and other things, food theory and so on and so forth, psychology and those things which you might have read through. That so you will have your strengths, somebody will have their strengths, and you'll be part of a study group where you will leverage those strengths from each other. So we'll create a assignment for assignments. We'll have a group which will be diverse group. So you learn from each other as well. And the faculty members also, will keep that in mind because it's a 2-year program.
Okay, done. Also, I just wanted to confirm in the application because I have this 1-year internship that is part of the curriculum, and that I have mentioned as full time. So that is okay to do, right?
So ideally, it's okay to do it. If it crosses your 2 years, then you might want to reach out to us and see. But ideally,
Okay.
it's fine as of now. Yeah.
Okay. And also one last just a clarification. I, out of my own interest, have joined a social media team that is related to motorbikes. And I am just doing content creation, like in terms of writing scripts and also writing some captions for them. Now this is completely just me volunteering, and I don't have any pay slips or anything. So do I mention this as part of my part time, or do I not?
Part-time. You can mention it as part-time.
Sure. Okay. And do I
Part-time or
need
paid
any?
interest. Part-time,
Yes,
you will need
and
any proof. For part-time, if you mention you need any proof, or you can mention it as part of an interest in
part of my
activities.
interest. Okay. So do I need any certificate from the
Some
SL?
ability to talk about it, because if you mention that, it could be part of the interview and they might want to know what you did and to be aware of what you've done. Some awareness about the work and so on and so forth would be required. Certificates as such, are not the only thing that we will look only at the time of registrations, but ability to talk about it in depth is what I'll suggest everybody have on whatever you write in your application.
Sure. Okay. Done. Thank you so much.
Ayushi, go ahead, please. Kindly unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thanks. So I have a question about what a humanities student do in an ISB campus. So I did English majors from Lady Shriram College, and then I didn't get like really good grades. I'm a 7 CGPA because humanities also do it, and then got a placement in not so good organization, but yeah, currently working in marketing. So what can I do to increase my chances of getting an ISB admit, and what should I look forward to
One
in
is
terms of skill set? Yeah.
one is showcase your strengths, whatever strengths that you have, being from a top institute in the country, kind of courses that you've done, the kind of work you've done in marketing in that area. So that itself is interesting to me, because somebody already working in the marketing area, you gain some certain skill sets, showcase that. And if your acads are not as great, then I'll say that work on the things that are in your control now. And in your control right now, you have your test scores, either GMAT or GRE if that's the route you're taking, or the CAT if that's the route you're taking. Make sure you do to the best of your potential in that area. So that is what I'll talk about. And then of course, identify your strengths in terms of activities that you've done and how you showcase them on the applications. That's the thing you should concentrate on for the time being.
Okay, that answers. And my experience have been like in two of my organizations, it's had been in the founder's office role. So how crucial that role is in terms of MBA now? I want you to answer that. And yeah, that's the whole of it.
See, any role is it's not about the terminology, it's about the exposure that you get from that particular role. And I believe being in a founder's office, you are privy to a lot of information or a lot of processes on how decisions are made in a growing startup or in an organization. What kind of strategic inputs are done. You have a bird's eye view of an organization. So showcase that exposure, right? In your maybe conversations in the interview or in your essays or whenever you write your achievements. So that's something which is a very interesting thing to talk about. A lot of people, in fact, join founders office roles even after an MBA because of the kind of exposure it gives them in the long term. So I would say that if you have that particular role, so talk about the exposure and not just this role, any role that you have, where the designation doesn't matter. It's about what kind of exposure you have, what kind of skill sets you've gained. That's more important.
Okay, thank you.
Sahil, go ahead, please. Sahil Agarwal.
Hello, good evening. I would like to ask about the curriculum. So the Pivot and Ideas Lab are exceptional platforms for innovation and perhaps even interdisciplinary learning. So, we spoke about AI here. So how is AI integrated into these two aspects of the PGP YL's curriculum? Could you please tell me, like, are there any AI focused projects here that I would be allowed to do, or any collaborations with AI
Pivot
firms?
or in Pivot and the other Ideas Lab, that's what you're talking, right?
Right. So,
Yeah.
like,
So
will there be any
yeah,
specific AI projects which I can pursue, or will there be any collaborations with AI firms?
plenty. So, in fact, there is a lot of research happening. A professor who was, the executive director for Shritni Center, Sri Raju Center for IT Network Economy. So, there's a lot of research which happens continuously with organizations, with Microsoft and others being right or next door neighbors, and even otherwise the linkages. A lot of research happens in such centers. A lot of projects are, offered to the student community also from these centers. Now, as part of the Ideas Lab or as part of the Pivot Labs, what kind of projects you choose, what kind of skill sets you showcase, it will depend on all that, whether you work on a particular project or not. So it will be primarily basis your skill sets. So how it happens in PGP is what team you form and how do you interview for those projects is what will determine. But opportunities are there to work on those projects. Whether you will be able to leverage those is up to you, how you take up your skill sets and showcase them.
Right, I understand. So it is like a large component of these of the curriculum in this sense
So
as well.
some projects should be in AI, could be in core AI. Some projects could be in its implementation. Some could be in HR. Some could be in other areas of management, because AI is not the only part of this thing. But there are projects in AI and its implications in the business world.
So it can like encompass other fields also, as you mentioned, like finance, for
Yes.
example, or even strategy, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that answers my question.
Thank you. Anish?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. So you were mentioning that you have some career tracks, right? That we can pursue by doing some electives. So I can't see the exact course list on the website.
So I was mentioning that the course list and the entire curriculum will be updated by mid-Jan on the website. There's still some fine tuning which is happening, but by mid-Jan you'll have the entire curriculum and course lists updated on the website.
So what I was thinking is maybe I could use these electives. I can mention them in my essays to tell you guys how I can contribute to these electives if they are
What I'll
overlapping with my
suggest is,
courses.
rather than mentioning exact electives, you can mention overarching themes. And for those themes, you can look at the PGP curriculum. The kind of courses that are offered there, and those themes you can utilize for the time being.
Okay, and these career tracks also are they? I mean, the career tracks also mentioned in PGP.
PGP, it's more of specializations. So they have 10 specializations in PGP. We have strategy, entrepreneurship, finance, marketing, operations, public policy, infrastructure, healthcare, manufacturing, and IT. So 10 specializations are there in PGP.
So can YL have similar themes or?
Similar. At least the functions should be similar. industry, although should be, but I won't talk about them functions, at least marketing, operations, finance, strategy, entrepreneurship, public policy, you can look at. It'll have similar, all this tracks.
Okay. Okay. And one more question I had. This PGP YL or normal PGP, they're not recognized as MBA outside India, right?
Inside India. Outside India, they are. Inside India, they're not recognized as MBA because they are not, we're not part of UGC. So in India, UGC mandates that uh, any institution cannot offer a degree unless they are affiliated to UGC. But there are a lot of restrictions on being affiliated to UGC. We can't be an independent B school. We can't have foreign faculty. We can't have pair faculty so much. So in India, it's not recognized as an MBA by maybe some of the PUs like State Bank of India may not hire you, may not consider you as an MBA, but outside India, all top colleges will recognize our PGP as MBA. Our students do PhDs from there as well. All the organizations in India, like the Amazons, Googles, McKinseys of the world, hire from our campuses and recognize you as MBA. But some government organizations may not recognize you as MBA in India, right?
Yeah,
For
yeah,
example, the low level.
Hmm. Okay, I get that, but
Outside we are because we are part of FT MBA Global Rankings. We are ranked 31st there for the PGP. And here also, once we become eligible, we'll be ranked with FT or economics or others. So we are part of those rankings along with Harvard, Wharton, and others. So outside we are recognized as MBA, no doubt about it.
so after doing a PGP or PGP YL from ISB, so one can't go for an MBA abroad, right? In that case.
Yeah, MBA abroad you can go. MBA you don't need to even look at do PGP or PGP YL. You can for a PhD is what you want to go do right after MBA because
No,
MBA is
no,
only a
no.
master's degree.
MBA only. MBA abroad.
Why can't see you will do an MBA from ISB, so you can always do a double MBA if that's what your question is, right? And
No, no,
for
because
doing that,
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. The reason is, in foreign universities, they once a person does an MBA that is recognized by them, they can't be doing another MBA at that university. So if um
I don't think that's the case because I personally know people not just from ISB but even from IMA, B, and C who have done their MBA from those institutes and then went on to do MBA from Harvard or other places also. So some terminology may differ, but that's not the case. I know personally people who have done that. Maybe they've done the fellows program or other things, but it is possible.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you.
Aditya, go ahead, please.
Hello. Yes. My question was during profile evaluation when you consider test scores, be it CAT or GRE or any test, do you consider sectional scores or do you only look at the overall score?
Overall scores.
So basically, let's say there is a lesser score in one of the sections, but the overall score is good enough. I'll be marked according to overall scores.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Veer, go ahead, please.
Hi. Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask that while the profile evaluation, so in my college, I have a score of slightly less than 8 because in one of the terms I had COVID and I fell ill, so I scored very bad in that particular term. So, will the evaluation look at term-wise scores or will they look at the overall score?
Overall scores.
Only overall scores. And so if this question gets asked to me in the interview, I can give this reason, right? So
what reason? Yeah, of course. Whatever reason you want to give, you can give that. That's not a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Saksham.
Saksham, yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So my question is a bit technical. The work experience criteria is 2 years for PGP YL, and I think the cutoff date is 15th of June. I will be crossing that by around 2 weeks on that date. So, but if I do get admission, I could always resign a bit earlier and keep my experience under 2 years. So, would I still be considered eligible? Would there be a problem?
Only problem because system will automatically calculate your work weeks if you're working currently till 15th of June. And you will not be eligible to apply itself in the application portal.
Right. So in that case, I should
Apply
aim for the PGP program.
Yes.
Thank you.
Vivek, last question of the day.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good
Sir,
evening.
I'm an advocate. I enrolled as an advocate in 2023.
Hmm.
I did my graduation from Kerala University in law.
Hmm.
Sir, Kerala University is kind of known for giving very low marks.
Hmm. Yeah.
My academics would be 72.8%. But then I have my 4th rank in college and an 11th rank in university. But then my gold medalist, first ranker, I have a mere 75.2%.
Yeah.
So
No,
when application is being considered against others who come from other universities with 95 or 98 percentages, how would you really stand up with those candidates?
Yeah, so that is an issue common with a lot of universities across the country, and we have normalized scores in that case. And so we have a database of almost all the universities over the years having applied to PGP. We have proactively sought, data from all the universities in terms of their medians, or we have tracked that data. And don't worry, your scores will be normalized accordingly. So we understand that this situation, and it's not just with your university, a lot of other universities also have face the same situation, and we go about to great lengths to normalize the scores accordingly, and that will happen for your case as well.
Okay, sir. Is there anything that I can do to help ISB with this process?
In the achievement section, mention 4th rank and other things that you talked about here. Just in case they don't have data, they will actually source that and accordingly normalize the scores.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, so there was this question in chat. I have already answered it by Balkan Gautam. He has asked. I've already addressed it, just in case if you want to, focus something
Ask
else.
the question, maybe
Yeah,
live.
so he asked that, can people doing PGP YL do PhD? So if you can address that as well.
So yes, there will be some certain additional documentation required, and which college will be happy to provide you. But we have seen people doing PGP have done PhD, so here also you'll have an opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Because we have accreditations from the Equis, EMBA, and ACSB, so that should consider equivalence and allow you to do PhDs across the world. We have people doing PhDs in Finland, people doing PhDs in Southeast Asia. So you can do it from India as well as India. Some colleges you may not, but abroad definitely yes. IIMs definitely yes, but maybe some university under UGC. But after an ISB from MB, you may not want to also look at a Tier 2, Tier 3 university, but almost all top universities in India will also accept that.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And with this, we have come to the end of the session. Any last words, sir?
So thank you, audience. Thank you for being part of this session. And we look forward to meeting you again next week with another session. And we'll also have one application helpline workshop after 8th and 2 Q&A sessions closer to deadline for any questions. Wish you all the very best, and thank you and good night. Thank you, Kaushik.
Everyone, thank you. Good night.